Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to welcome you today in this beautiful Brussels city, in this beautiful museum. As a former geologist, to be in such event and such a place, Natural Museum, is a great pleasure. It's a great honor to launch again this new EXPANDEO 2023. Over the last few years, EXPANDEO became a brand. In order to liaise the Earth observation community with the actors that will support and drive our industry. Last year, just to give you some numbers, we had more than 480 attendees from 350 entities from 69 countries. And this is possible because we decided to organize it as a hybrid event, because we want to be an enabler to allow all people from Brussels, from Belgium, from Europe, and from all over the globe to have the opportunity to understand what are the current capabilities of our beautiful industry. EXPANDEO is the event where market meets. It's a place where the Earth observation can meet and interact with policymakers, institutional actors, to unlock the full potential of the Earth observation in Europe. It is as well the place where we can inform on technical innovation in order to support the legislation. In order to support this goal, we develop with all the team a 2-day journey with 10 sessions and 15 high-level speakers. And today, we reach more than 600 registrants already, even more maybe. And so it is by far the biggest event that we had the pleasure to organize. In fact, this is not our event, it is your event. And this is only possible because we have a huge community behind us. Our members, yes, of course, but as well all the sponsors that are supporting the organization. Without them, this would not be possible. Thanks to all of them. We are today in this museum, so I need to inform about some safety rules. This is a public building, so as you know, people can access in order to visit the museum. So just be cautious about your stuff. We have one slide with the safety rules that should be displayed in order not to make this beautiful event turn into something less nice. Can we have the slide, please? You have access to a Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi is available, and there is another one which is restricted. So please take care of your personal belongings, and please do not bring food or drink into this place. If we need to exit, this is the same path that we used to enter, so straight up to the upper floor. Thank you. I will now introduce the one who will introduce. Thank you. Will introduce the event. Among the different G's, DEFIS is by far one of the closest supporter and enabler. Guillaume De la Brosse is currently head of unit in charge of space innovation startup and economics in the European Commission. Previously, Guillaume was assistant to the Director General. He joined the Commission in 2016 as member of the Commission think tank and member of the UK task force, where he dealt with security, defense and space. Before joining the Commission, Guillaume worked in the European Defence Agency as assistant to the Executive Director from 2016 to 2016, and as a Palm Mill advisor in the French permanent representation to the EU from 2006 to 2011. So, Guillaume, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, and I'm very happy and honored to be with you this morning in that museum. Indeed, When I was invited to this event, it was a great honor to me because my core business is not Earth observation. I'm dealing with that partially, but this is not the core business of my unit. But we thought with Emmanuel that it was very useful for you to get a bit of a background as well in terms of where the Commission is going when it comes to space. And I think we are quite in a good situation, a good shape with this Commission when it comes to space, because we have a very vocal Commissioner, Commissioner Breton, who considers that space is one of the top priority of this Commission, and he's very much shaking the agenda of the Commission to make that happen. I think there is a very good reason for that, which is that space is a key enabler. And I'm not going to convince you about that, but it's really a key enabler for delivering many priorities, many policies that we want to achieve. And this is why we want to really turn Europe as one of the space power in the world. So Commissioner Breton, when he took his duty, had a clear plan for space, and actually a few key priorities that he wanted to deliver. First of those priorities was on EU flagships, of course. I mean, the modernization of Galileo, accelerating the deployment of the Galileo second generation, modernization of Copernicus, organized around 3 drivers, this modernization. One, onboarding of new space companies. 2, the use of quantum space gravimetry. And third, the development of new services, much more driven by governmental needs. But I will get back to that. Second big priority of Commissioner Breton was access to space. I mean, we face a very difficult situation today, so this is why he puts a lot of energy in trying to retake control of our launchers in Europe to ensure that we have autonomous access to space. So this is very high on the agenda for the time being. Third priority is on space entrepreneurship, and I will get back to that, but clearly the idea was really to enable the rapid emergence of a new commercial private actors in the field of space, and this is happening, so that's excellent news, especially in the field of Earth observation. And the last driver was synergies between space and defense, and I'll get back to that as well a bit later. Clearly, when it comes to the use of space for delivering our policies, this is one of the top priority that we are pushing through different means. As you know, I mean, and I'd like to thank very much our agency in Prague, USPA, who's in charge of the market uptake. We are developing a strategy that will be delivered by the end of this year or early next year on how to better promote and encourage the market uptake of Earth observation, Galileo, and other space data. So this is a strategy that we will push forward that will give a new boost to this market uptake. We are using as second leverage as well Horizon Europe. We have done lots of work together with other DGs to ensure that when it comes to certain projects, certain calls of Horizon Europe, when there is a need to use space data, the priority will go to using Copernicus, Galileo, and other EU space data. So in a systematic manner, if you want, and that to really ensure that our companies in Europe would have the chance to develop businesses using the EU space flagships. So that's something that we are very much pushing forward. And again, I'd like to thank USPA, who is in charge of this market uptake and trying to push the use of space for different policies. I think to me what really matter in the upcoming year is to try and focus on big verticals. We have huge market coming up in the field of security, in the field of energy, and this is where I think we will have to certainly focus a lot, without forgetting, of course, the green and digital transition that are there to stay, and this is where you will be focusing your discussion today, but this is clearly a top priority. So green digital transition, what we have seen, of course, over the past years was kind of third big priority on the Commission's agenda, triggered by the war of aggression of Russia against Ukraine. That was the resilience and strategic autonomy agenda. And space plays a key role there as well. So you have seen certainly that recently, it was a few months ago in March, the European Commission and the High Representative adopted a new space strategy for security and defense on how, on one side, to best protect our space assets against any security threats, security incidents, plus, on the other side, how can we maximize the use of space for security and defense purposes. And this is where actually there is a kind of avenue, a new avenue, including for your community, because it will be a new business segment in the upcoming year, the role of space for security purposes. In this strategy, actually, we are proposing different work strands that we want to implement. And one of them will be to develop, as part of Copernicus, a new governmental service that can be used by security users and defense users. We have seen in Ukraine the power of space for a country to regain strategic superiority, including through intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, including through satellite communication, secure satellite communications. And that's why, I mean, Ukraine is really a showcase about the potential use of space for a country to regain autonomy and to regain superiority. So on that basis, drawing lessons from that, we are very much trying to push now within Copernicus the possibility to have a new service that would be designed for security users and defense users. It does not mean, of course, that we are going to militarize Copernicus. I mean, there is some kind of misunderstanding from time to time. Clearly, Copernicus will remain a civilian program under civilian control. The data policy will not change. But what we want to achieve is having a new service, a new government service as part of Copernicus that would obey to certain security rules to enable that the military and the security users would fully trust that service. So this is something that we are developing together with member states, together with industry, with basically two steps. Step number one is, again, as part of Copernicus, trying to develop a pilot service. This is short-term. This is acting within existing means and capabilities. But in parallel, what we want to achieve is preparing the future. So which are the options for the next MFF to develop such a service within or outside Copernicus? So that's something that we are very much considering. And again, this is about the use of space for strategic reasons here. Now, I'd like very much to focus a bit on innovation and how innovation will push the agenda of space in the upcoming years. And I'd like to focus on 5 points. One is next MFF, the next multi-annual financial framework. As you know, we are entering now into this very critical moment of the Commission where we'll be transitioning between 2 commissions. And we will start thinking about the next priorities of the next Commission, and the next Commission will have on his agenda very high the preparation of the next multi-annual financial framework. Usually we always start 18 months, 2 years before to start collecting ideas when it comes to the next MFF, so that will come very quickly on the agenda of the next Commission. And clearly, one thing that we want to push is getting a bigger budget, not only for space, but for space research activities as part of Horizon Europe. And I'm sure that you're all familiar with that. In Horizon Europe, we have a budget line in support of space innovation, space research. That's very little compared to the level of ambition that we have for space research activities. That's why we are, for the time being, with this, we are going through a consultation, stakeholder consultation, we are going to talk to member states, but we are basically building the case for research activities in the field of space in the EU for the next MFF, trying to get kind of strong business case and get a bigger budget for our community for space innovation as part of the next MFF. So that's driver number 1. Driver number 2 is the acceleration of new space companies. So again, I mentioned to you, this is a top priority of Commissioner Breton. We want the entire ecosystem in Europe to grow and scale up quickly. And I know in this audience there are many startups, many SMEs, so we really want to give a boost to you. And that's why we have put together the Cassini initiative. Some of you may know already. As part of this Cassini initiative, we are developing basically a toolbox to enable the rapid emergence of new space companies, SMEs and startups dealing with space in Europe, be it upstream or downstream. This is really the entire ecosystem. What do we propose as part of this Cassini initiative? First, capital, access to finance, because we know that many of you do need, for this rapid emergence, rapid commercialization, you need access to equities. Sometimes we know that it's quite difficult in Europe to find access to equities because of the risk aversion of VCs in Europe, and that's something that we are unlocking, this access to finance, in working together with the European Investment Fund, working together with a series of VCs that are ready to invest in certain startups and SMEs. And we have a good track record now of, again, putting together a network of VCs aiming at investing in startups in Europe. Recently, again, we signed an investment agreement with Alpine Ventures based in Germany. We had one with OTB based in Poland, and there are more to come. So that's the good news. Second element that we provide through that toolbox is basically matchmaking. So we are putting together startups together with VCs or together with corporate ventures. Third element, we are proposing business service accelerators designed for the needs of startups. And the last element, and that's something new as well, is acting as an anchor customer. So basically the Commission and the European Space Agency are purchasing services directly from certain startups. We will start, and you will hear that very, very soon, we will start with Copernicus, actually, buying data and services from a series of startups so that we are an anchor customer. The Commission is becoming an anchor customer, ESA is becoming an anchor customer, and that will again be announced very soon. We have 9 companies that will get 9 contracts from us, and this has a value. This has a value as such, but this has a value as well to attract additional private investors. So this is precisely why we want to act as an anchor customer. Innovation, again, third driver that we want to push to enable, again, the innovation in space and the uptake of Earth observation data is a greater teaming up between DG DEFIs and other DGs. Why? Because, again, if we want to push space out of the space bubble. As I mentioned to you, space is a key enabler, so we need to convince other Directorate Generals that space is an enabler for them to deliver their priorities. And today I know that you will have INPA coming, for instance, so it's a DG with whom we are working very well, but we need to really team up much more closely with other DGs, so that space is not just the ownership of DG DEFIs, but is a shared ownership by many more DGs. So this is something that we need to push in the years to come, including with a view to preparing the next MFF, so that, again, we can ensure that space will be used to deliver policies by other DGs. Fourth element, that is very high on our agenda when it comes to innovation for space, skills. Skills, we know that skills is an issue for the space sector. It's an issue for many tech sectors, but especially for the space sectors. And while we have many companies that have been created, hiring talents is an issue. So this is why as well, because, I mean, on top of that, this year is the European Year of Skills, so we are developing a series of initiatives to ensure that you can get the skills that you need for the scaling up and growing up of your activities. The last element that I like to mention that will certainly foster the innovation agenda for space is the EU space law. We have announced that we would prepare an EU piece of legislation to regulate space activities in the field of safety, security, and sustainability. Why? Because we see that many member states do have national laws, many member states do not have any space laws, and that you don't have any consistency between the different space laws in member states, which means that a company has to comply with different set of rules if it wants to operate in Germany, in France, in Italy, in the Netherlands, which goes against the single market. So this is something that we want to simplify, including for your competitiveness, to ensure that we have a single market for space. No fragmentation in Europe, in the EU, but one single market that will obey to one single set of rules. And actually, as part of this EU space law, since we will identify certain requirements to be fulfilled by commercial entities willing to operate and deliver services in the EU, we want to have some flanking measures, including innovation flanking measures, to incentivize and to accelerate of course, the fact that industry would have to align with those requirements, including when it comes to safety, sustainability, and security requirements. So the innovation agenda will be pushed as well through that EU space law. I'll be finishing with that, really trying to give you this broad overview, this broad picture about space, how the Commission is again highly engaged in the field of space, and the fact that we have created this DG on space and defense is really a testimony or a clear evidence that the Commission is highly engaged in that policy field. It's only a start, so we really need to continue pushing together, pushing this agenda. I understand actually that one of the purpose of that meeting is trying to ensure that the Earth observation community is not just talking to the Earth observation community, but to other communities. That's precisely what we need to achieve when it comes to space at large, to ensure that space is not just talking to the space community, but trying to get on board other communities again to ensure that they will use space to deliver on their agenda. With that, Emmanuel, I'd like to thank you so much, and I wish you 2 exciting days, very fruitful days in this very nice museum. Thank you so much.